Hi everyone. In today's video, I wanted to show you how I've been using my traveler's notebook passport as a journal, and it's been working surprisingly well. I have historically never been able to use the passport as anything other than as a wallet. So this kind of took me by surprise, and it started out as just a simple insert that I wanted to write in because I felt like I needed a change, and it kind of just evolved and it became this special focus project where I started to just add more and more to it, and now it really feels like a safe second home, especially related to processing my thoughts and feelings around the recent loss of my dog, Coconut. So I suppose as a bit of a trigger warning, I will be talking about pet loss and grief around that. So if that's something that feels really heavy for you, just the topic of grief or loss in general, then perhaps this might be the time to click away and maybe save this video for another day. It's mostly going to be a flip through, but I just wanted to acknowledge up front that I will be talking about grief and loss a little bit. Before we get into it, I did have a few quick updates. I hope they're going to be quick this time, so I'm just going to get right to it. I have an update around my TWSBI ego. So in my stationary regrets video, I talked about how I wasn't in love with the extra fine nib. I have two TWSBI egos. I have a Cafe Bronze, which I don't have on me right now, and I have this espresso bronze. And I talked about how I really loved the fine nib in the Cafe Bronze, but I didn't really love the extra fine nib in this espresso bronze. But I preferred the color of this espresso bronze more than the Cafe Bronze. So many of you suggested that I swap the nibs, which, looking back, I can't believe that just didn't occur to me. Swapping nibs just isn't something that I really think about, but now I do. So thank you for those suggestions. It was such an obvious thing in hindsight, but it just didn't occur to me. Anyway, after that video, a viewer reached out to me and offered to swap a broad nib with the extra fine, which I was very interested to do because I've never tried the TWSBI broad, and I don't really have a lot of broad nibs, and so it seemed like a good opportunity to try the nib. But also I thought if I happen to not like the broad nib for any reason, that might be a good nib candidate for getting an interesting nib grind down the road. So we met up earlier this week. Sarah, if you are watching this, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me, and also sharing some lovely ink samples with me, which I'm so excited to try out. I don't have any of those ink samples, but I wanted to show you. So I, of course, inked it up with Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki, which is what I ink all my new pens up with when I want to test them. And I've got my pen test insert, I'm not really sure what to call it, in here. And I thought I would show you, let me just move Miffy out of the way. I thought I would show you how this nib looks. So in here, we've got the lines for not all of my pens, but a bunch of different pens that I have inked with Konpeki. And you can see, especially compared to the Benu nibs, the Benu is still one of the most saturated nibs that I have ever tried. Franklin Christoph is another surprising one that seems to be like a very wet nib, and it makes Konpeki look a lot darker. And the TWSBI Eco is kind of somewhere in between. So I find because it's, I guess, a broader nib, it makes the ink look a lot softer, which I appreciate. And it's a very smooth writer. And then in this book, I try to do longer writing samples so I can get a feel for what it looks like. And it just helps me understand the nib more so that when I ink it with different inks, then I kind of have an idea of what I might want to pair it with. And I had actually done the espresso bronze with the extra fine nib a year ago, April 2025, on this side. And I had left this blank because I was intending on filling my TWSBI Eco fine nib so I could compare the extra fine to the fine. But I thought this was an even more interesting comparison where it's the extra fine that I no longer have, so I no longer have this nib, and what it looks like in the broad. I'll just pause so you can take a look at that if you want to zoom in or anything like that. And I feel like this broader nib really makes this ink look a little lighter and softer. I don't know how else to describe it. So I don't think it's a very as juicy of a nib as I thought, especially when I compare it to, say, like a Benu. So my kind of takeaway is if I have a very, very light colored ink, then I probably want to put it in like a Benu or a Franklin Christoph to give it its best chance at being legible. I'm unsure about the TWSBI Eco. I think I thought the broad nib would automatically just make it kind of look a little more like this. So I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm excited to try it out. And I'm not sure what I'll ink this up with once I'm finished with Konpeki. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know what I should ink this up with next. I mean, obviously a brown would be really fun, but even if you have another color that you think would contrast really well with it, I would love to hear your suggestions. So I love looking up new inks. I wanted to share my little DIY corner cutter that I created for my Hobonichi Weeks. I'm so happy with it, so I really just wanted to share it. It was so easy to put together. I didn't really film myself making this, but I thought I could just talk you through how I approached it. So basically, I had a piece of thin cardboard, but still somewhat substantial. So these are the kinds of things that you get if you ever order prints, or sometimes when I order stickers, it'll be on like a backing like this. And I placed this elastic kind of out on the edge to get a sense of how far I would want to have the bear, because I wanted this little bear to be above my 2026. I just kind of put this cardboard underneath, and then I marked the two spots that I felt like I needed the string to go. So that kind of told me like how tall and how wide I needed this to be. And then after that, I cut it out. And I didn't have like a one-hole punch, so I have a pair of nail clippers. I don't use this for nails. I use this for yarn sometimes, like when I travel. Sometimes I travel with a nail clipper so I can cut yarn, because these are less likely to get taken away at the airport. And I used this like sharp edge, and I basically just poked a hole where I wanted the hole to be. And then I used the like the nail clipper side to clip around the part of the cardboard that was like sticking out. You definitely don't need to do this if you have a one-hole punch, but I just didn't have one, and I didn't want to buy one. So I punched my two holes, and then I kind of tested out. I just tied the string. This is one of the strings that come with every traveler's notebook. Once I was happy with that, I covered it in washi tape, and I didn't even try too hard. I just used scraps of washi tape that I had been saving from other projects. So you can see it's not like I lined everything up like I normally do. And I used a corner cutter around the edges just to make them look a little bit nicer. And you can see I didn't really do the greatest job, but that's okay. And that's what it looks like on the back. I didn't really bother covering the back because you'll never see it. And then I took one of these like extra pockets. These come with all the Hobonichi Weeks. And I simply slide this in like so. and then it works just like the corner cutter. And I think, honestly, I think this little bear really makes it for me. I just think it's so cute. And I love this so much more than having it here. Like, I'm glad I didn't have to poke a hole into this book. I love that this doesn't cover this beautiful text, and I didn't have to modify my plastic cover. So it saves me from having to buy a new plastic cover if I ever want to use one again. And it works even with this plastic cover on, because the plastic cover has one of these pockets here. And so I tried it both ways. So if I want to go out, then I can just put this back on and still use this. But since I mostly just use this at home, I don't think I'm going to really take it out. So I do prefer having the cover off. We'll see how long that lasts. If I start to get it really dirty, then I'll probably put the plastic cover back on. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and I just wanted to share it with you because it was such an easy DIY. And if you have any questions, let me know. I could potentially make another one if you really want a tutorial, but hopefully my explanation was easy enough. Let's talk about this passport. So normally I do all of my journaling in this beautiful traveler's notebook. And the intention of this video isn't going to be me saying that I no longer use this book, because I'll explain later that I did end up finding this book still to be helpful in terms of processing my grief. But I just found in the first few days after Coconut passed, I just didn't really want to pick up this book. There was something about the fact that before he passed, I was just talking about certain things, and then there was this very stark contrast in just everything once he was gone. And so, I don't know, I just didn't want to reach for this. There was some kind of blocker, but I felt like I still had so many feelings and thoughts and memories that were kind of flooding my mind. And I realized that I just wanted a container for it. Yeah, I realized that I wanted some kind of container for it. And so, being completely honest with you, I contemplated giving in to my desire to buy a Paper Republic or a Louise Carmen, because there's definitely something to be said for wanting to make myself feel better by maybe buying something new. And I thought about it, and then in a way, my impatience actually worked in my favor, in that I was thinking, I want something now, and if I buy one of these other things, I will have to wait for it to be shipped. I'll have to wait for it to arrive, and I really honestly just need a space to kind of process everything that I'm feeling about Coconut. And for some reason, I just don't want to use my regular long form journal. And so I kind of looked around with what I had, and I thought, the passport is such an interesting size, and it's one that I have never been able to use as anything other than a wallet. When I first got my passport, it was a camel passport. I loved it, but I tried using the notebook for maybe a day, and it just didn't work. I've bought monthly inserts, and I've never stuck with them. So I had this Love and Trip passport that I purchased when I got my standard size Love and Trip. And I had thought that I would eventually use it as a wallet and just sort of, swap around wallets when I needed to change. But I decided to pull it out, and I thought, you know what? I'll just use the insert that comes with it. I'll try it out. And worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, then maybe then I can think about trying a different notebook size, or trying a different notebook, or maybe even buying a different cover if that's what I'm feeling like I want at the time. But it has been working out surprisingly well, and I love how compact this is. Like, I can put this in my purse and pull it out whenever I need to. So it has become a very special book, and the more I put into it, the more I add to it, the more it really starts to feel like a second home for kind of processing my grief. So even though that is the way that I am using this, I do think that this could be helpful for just any type of journaling, especially if something like this is maybe too big or it's too chunky. I mean, I personally think this is okay to travel with or put in my purse, but I also really love how compact this is. And technically, the passport also like fits inside the porter. I mean, because I use this for my Midori Hibino, it wouldn't really fit, but it does technically fit in here. So I think that's also really cool. I love it when things kind of work together as like one big system. I thought I could show you my setup and talk you through how I'm using it. It's very simple, but I still thought it might be interesting to share. So on the front, I have 3 things here. This is Coconut's old collar tag. I put some washi tape on the back just because it does have some personal information on it. And then this is one of the tags that I got from registering him with the Toronto, I forget what it's called, like Toronto Pet something. And this has a little raccoon on it because if you live in Toronto, then you will know that raccoons are Toronto's unofficial mascot. And then this is a beautiful pendant. It's meant to be a necklace of one of Coconut's paw prints. I just thought it would be really sweet as a charm, and I actually really like how this turned out. It's a little busy, but I just love this little tribute, and I get to kind of keep this close by. I have my brass clip on top, and I just use that sometimes to help me keep the page open. The first thing that you'll see is yet another DIY folder. So I made this using the packaging that comes with a traveler's notebook passport. I did the same thing for the standard size. So I have one of these that I DIY'd using the standard packaging. And if you are curious about how I did that, I'll share a few photos in progress that I shared on my Patreon Discord channel, but also I'll share a link to a video where I filmed myself making it. So it was the same process. It was a little bit of trial and error. If you are interested in like a formal tutorial, I can try to put something like that together, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's a little thick down here, but overall I'm really happy with how it turned out, and it's just very useful to have a folder like this. I just covered it in my William Morris wallpaper washi tape, and then I just put here on the cover little coconut. Over here I have one of these little dog paper clips that Michael from Michael in the Margins sent me, and I love it so much. I think it's so cute. And just on the front cover I have clipped one of my favorite photos of Coconut that a friend actually took. She's a very talented photographer, and she was dog sitting him and took this photo, and I just love it. It's definitely one of my favorite photos of him, where he was much younger. And then on the other side, this worked out so perfectly. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better, like, for this to work out, but I have a pencil board, and on the back I have one of those sticky pen loops, and it just, if I put it right in the corner, it fits perfectly here, slides in perfectly. I think if it had been any bigger, I would have had to have modified this a little bit, which wouldn't have been an issue, but I couldn't believe like how perfectly it fit. And I just love that I can kind of have a pen permanently with this journal, because I don't use any other pens. I just use this one. This is a Traveler's Notebook brass pen, and I currently have it inked with Tatcha Suchi, which is a lovely ink. I thought about putting my E95S in here because I just thought it would match really well with the cover, but this is a pen that I'm not worried about it getting damaged. And if I'm putting this in my purse and I'm being a bit, rough with it, then I just feel better having like a pen like this. So I thought this worked out so well because I don't love the clips that stick to the cover. I've tried them before and I'm just not a fan. So I just think this works out. I personally think this worked out even better. And then I have another insert, which I'll talk about in a second. And then I have a folder just kind of stuck to the strings on the back. And my plan here is to put dog stickers. So I've had some pen pals send me some dog stickers. These dog stickers were sent to me by Michael in the margins. And I just thought it would be kind of fun to like lean into the whole dog theme and just keep them in here. So I'll talk about that in a second. So let's talk about the inserts. So this insert just came with the Love and Trip. And another reason why I like having a folder in between the insert and the cover is so that I can protect this cover from getting any kind of like this leather rubbing against it. When you get this cover, this insert has 2 sheets of paper in between the cover and the insert, which makes me think that it could get ruined. And so I like having this sort of as a protector. I'm going to blur out the majority of the writing in here just because it's quite personal, but I'll still do a flip through so you can get a feel for how I'm using it. The inside of this cover has a couple of cute little perforated cards, which I don't think I'm going to do anything with, but maybe I will in the future. On the front here, I have a photocopy of an ink print of Coconut's nose. Again, trigger warning, I'm so sorry if this triggers you. I just thought it was a really sweet thing that the emergency vet did for us. So yeah, I photocopied the ink print and I just cut it out and I rounded the corners with a corner cutter. And then over here, I have one of his paw prints. Again, so sweet that they did this. Here, I wanted to try out the dot method that everybody has been doing in their journals. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to try it out. So obviously credit goes to Megan Rhiannon for popularizing this. And also I saw Moonlit Journal in a recent video share that she would put her dots and actually have like empty slots as things came up, which sounded so obvious when she said it, but it didn't really occur to me. And one of the biggest blockers, I think, for me trying the system out was not knowing how I was going to categorize things. And so I started out with just the 2 journal entry and then a memory, because I was kind of getting flooded by memories of Coconut. And eventually I kind of added a few more things, and I still have a blank space if there's anything more that I want to add. I'll just talk you through what you see here. Basically, I use my date stamp, and then if it's a journal entry, then I'll use a green dot and then write. And I found this really helpful, especially in the beginning, where I needed a container to put my thoughts because I was just getting flooded by them. And so if it was in the middle of the workday and I was just having a lot of thoughts, I found it really helpful to pull this out, write about it, and then it kind of felt like I could release it. In the beginning, you'll see a lot of green dots because every time I open this journal, I put a new dot just to kind of signify like, this is how many times I'm needing to open my journal and get something out. And it continues where sometimes I would have memories that would just feel very vivid, and I wanted to describe them and in a way like honor those memories. I added a few stickers in the blank spaces, and then I just kind of continued in that way. I came across the Rainbow Bridge poem, and I've read it before, but it definitely brought me a big sense of comfort after having lost Coconut. And I find this poem very comforting because it just provides such a rich like visual for me. So it reminds me of almost like guided meditations where you can envision something to help regulate your emotion. And I just find that reading this and really envisioning it and envisioning Coconut being somewhere healthy and young again and just his sweet self before he got sick really brings me a lot of comfort. And so I actually copied this out in my Hobino as well. So if I'm finding myself feeling really sad about something, then I find that has been very helpful for me personally. So yeah. And one of my viewers actually recommended a book of poems, which I have put on hold in the library. And so I anticipate as I'm reading through those, I might copy some of them in here because I do find them very comforting. It just kind of continues. And then here, I don't know, this doesn't have a dot actually. I'm not sure what it would be. But here I just kind of put all of his nicknames that we gave him, which I put together in collaboration with my partner. So we just kind of talked about what we used to call him. And I don't know, this really brings me a lot of joy. And then I had some friends send me flowers. And so I took some photos and put them in here. And then, yeah, I had some more flowers over here. And then over here, a viewer sent me this image. I've seen it before, but I've never had it be, I guess, customized to me. And I printed it out and just put it in here because it was so thoughtful. So that's basically the journal. It's pretty much all about coconut. So it's just as I'm thinking or feeling, it's a place for me to basically just write down, and the intention is really to process it. So I'm not trying to avoid it, pretend it didn't happen. I really want to give myself the space to process it, but also treat it like a container so that I can still go on with my day. I can still function at work. I can still support others around me. So in a way, it's like this kind of regulation tool, because if I'm feeling like a memory comes up and I'm just feeling really sad about it, I'll write it out here and it just feels like I can honor that memory and move on with my day, if that makes sense. But I think even if I just wanted to use this as a regular journal, I think this is a really great space because it's so small, and I actually thought it was too small, but I essentially just started writing smaller, and you can fit a lot on this page if you write smaller. I mean, if you don't write small, that's fine too, but I realize I already write so small in my Hobino that this isn't too bad. Okay, let's just talk about this. So this is actually a sticker insert, and here's where I kind of have my dot stickers. I had them initially in this folder, but it was just messy and getting annoying, so I decided to put them all in here. I have some stars as well, so I can star like really important events or memories that I really want to call out. And then I just have like other stickers. And the special thing about this sticker insert is that this is actually the cover for this type of insert, which is like a card holder insert that I had been using for my larger traveler's notebook stickers. And because they're both stapled, I essentially removed the staples and I swapped the cover. So this was the cover that I had on my sticker release insert. And I just didn't really love like how it looked with this. I just wanted it to be a little more calm. And so I just swapped the covers, and I'm obsessed because I've always loved this cover, and I love that now I can kind of enjoy it in an insert that I'm going to be accessing much more frequently. Yeah, and then I just have this little folder that I think I'll just put more stickers in here if I want to. So that is my traveler's passport. I will say that because I want this to be primarily related to coconut, I did underestimate the power of my regular traveler's notebook. So this has not left my system. I would say this is just an add-on to help me process this this event, I noticed this week that I was having trouble figuring out like how I have been actually processing or how I was feeling about everything. Like I talk about thoughts and feelings and memories, and I'm sort of like, putting in events that are related to coconut, like receiving flowers or people sending me images. But I was trying to explain to a friend earlier this week that I'm still figuring out how I really feel about what happened. And when I pulled this out and I started just writing, so that expressive writing that I talk about in my workshops, actually, where it's really just about writing about your thoughts and feelings, no structure. It's really just meant to be a space for you to free write, and studies have shown that can help you process trauma or help you process grief. So I did that in here, and I was actually able to realize that the way that I have been kind of grieving, it's coming out in other ways. Like physically, I've been sort of dealing with a skin flare up, and I've realized that it's possibly that the stress of everything has kind of manifested itself in my body. And so I've been kind of dealing with that. And then I also noticed that I have been much more irritable around my loved ones, and I caught myself kind of snapping at my partner and acting a little bit out of character. And as I kind of dug into why, and, I used my feelings wheel to kind of help me figure out what was going on, I was able to uncover some other feelings that I think I'm experiencing right now, in addition to sadness. And so it was really helpful. And that was all in just one 20-minute processing session where I was just free writing and then eventually digging a little bit. So I've realized the importance of both. This one really helps me with insights, and this one was really helping me with, I guess, just regulation. So this one was more about regulating myself so I could still function as a human. And this one was really giving me the insights and helping me reflect a little more deeply to understand like what's going on and how has this event impacted me, so I can kind of understand what I might need to do to continue processing. So I'm not abandoning this system by any means. This is just an addition, something I'm feeling like reaching for more because it's bringing me a lot of comfort. But I think both have their place, and I'm probably journaling in this a little bit less, so it's not like a daily ritual, but I am journaling daily. It's just maybe not necessarily in the same space. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about today. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm curious if anyone journals in a passport, because this is definitely a first for me. And admittedly, I don't know how long I'm going to maintain this journal, but it definitely is feeling very like it's working for me right now. And I'm also glad that I have managed to make this work, and just all the different things that I've done with it is I don't know, I think all the little additions that I've made to really personalize it makes this feel, it just makes me feel even more attached to it. So I'm really loving this, and I was excited to share. I have thought about potentially making a video about processing grief, more specifically, maybe sharing some research, but I don't know if there's an appetite for that, because I know it's a really heavy topic, and generally speaking, I want this space to be real, but also more joyful and relaxing. So I'm curious. Let me know if that's something you would be interested in. And if not, then I might do something on my Patreon, because I do think it could be a helpful resource. I'm still deciding. If you're still here, thank you so much for being here. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video.